Our second guest in this series is Lieutenant General Samir Gupta. Throw some light on your key responsibilities.
We handle funds to the tune of about 2,25,000 crores every year, which are divided amongst about 700 and more than 780 odd code.
Hello and welcome to the YouTube channel of Center for Land Warfare Studies, in short also known as CLAWS, an independent think tank on strategic studies and land warfare issues. As the audience is by now aware that our center has started a series of podcasts inviting senior serving military officers to apprise the nation about the preparedness of the Indian Army to deal with current and likely future security challenges facing the country. Our second guest in this series is Lieutenant General Samir Gupta, Param Vishisht Seva Medal, the Director General of Financial Planning of the Indian Army. I dare say he is the person with onerous responsibility of meeting the requirements and aspirations of every department, formation and units of our army, so as to enable them to plan, prepare and execute their functions and responsibilities smoothly. A difficult task, but he has handled it, I must say, with great deal of expertise, sincerity and judiciousness. Let me say in brief, he is supposed to deliver better bang for the buck. Well, General Samir was commissioned into the medium regiment in June 1986. The general officer is a second generation officer, that is commendable, who is an alumnus of Delhi Public School, R.K. Puram, Sainik School, Bhubaneswar and Kapurthala, as also RMS Chahal. He is a graduate of Defence Services Staff College, LGSC, SDMC and National Defence College course. The General Officer has had the opportunity to serve in all types of terrain. He has commanded a medium regiment in Western Sector and also in Glacier, and he has also commanded the elite Deep Strike Artillery Division of the Indian Army. He has held numerous and diverse staff appointments at all levels, including Army Headquarters appointments before taking over as DG Financial Planning. I must add here that he has been awarded the Param Vishisht Seva Medal on 26 January 2024 for his services rendered to the Army and the nation by the President of India. And before I invite him, I must mention that he is an outstanding sportsman, having played badminton at the state level and squash at the services level. So, without much ado, I welcome General Samir to this podcast, and we are indeed grateful for him for having spared his time for this particular program. Thank you, General Samir. A very warm welcome to you on this platform of CLAWS. We are indeed very grateful to you for having spared your time.
Thank you very much, sir. It's a pleasure for me and an honor to be here with you today. Thank you.
So diving into the session straight away, General Samir, there are a large number of questions, which are asked about financial planning in the Army, and you being the head of the Financial Directorate, could you throw some light on your key responsibilities and what all goes into the financial planning of the Indian Army?
Well, sir, the Financial Planning Directorate is a small directorate. However, it's the nodal directorate for formulation of the Indian Army budget. And while this may sound very simple, but I'd just like to apprise you of the magnitude of the task. You see, we handle funds to the tune of about 2,25,000 crores every year, which are divided amongst about 700 and more than 780 odd code heads. We have to, interface with almost these 65 budget holders, high-level budget holders, and that I do on behalf of the Vice Chief of Army Staff. In addition to that, there are almost 16,000 budget centers spread out across the Indian Army. We have the task of interpreting policy, issuing guidelines, wherever as they affect the Indian Army. I have the task of being the single point of advice on financial matters to the Chief and the Vice Chief of Army Staff, as also the top hierarchy. In addition, we have been tasked with the enhanced adoption, monitoring and policy for the government e-marketplace. Another task which is there with the Financial Planning Directorate is the monitoring of, I beg your pardon, it's the, we need to make a presentation to the Standing Committee on Defence every year, in which all aspects related to financial matters are covered before the Standing Committee on Defence, before they start their question and answers. We are also the interface with the Ministry of Defence Finance, the CGDA, as also the C&AG for audits which they carry out for us. So we've also taken on the task of enhancement of financial literacy in the Indian Army. And of course, how do we enable our commands with the command budget management model? That is another thing that we have taken.
General Samir, I think that is a good overview of what you are supposed to do and what your directorate is supposed to do. Moving on to my next query, the Honorable Finance Minister in our budget had announced a robust capital expenditure push to give that multiplier effect into the growth of the country. So I'm sure the Indian Army, being a major user of this particular budget and major spender of capital expenditure, what all efforts are being made by the Indian Army to ensure that the capital expenditure is undertaken smoothly and we contribute to this overall growth of the nation?
So I think that's a very pertinent question, and it is a topical question these days. So far as the Indian Army goes, our capital budget is primarily utilized in three major portions. One, of course, is the modernization budget, which is the capital acquisition budget. Within that, we have the whatever new equipment we buy, that is part of the capital acquisition. Then we have the other capital procurement procedure, which is again a major chunk of almost 10,000 crores. Here, this is utilized for overhauls, refits, upgrades, and the like. And lastly, the third component, and a very important component, is the infrastructure budget. This one is utilized for both operational infrastructure as well as for administrative infrastructure. Now, I'll just elaborate on these briefly, sir. First is the modernization budget. Now, in the modernization budget, our focus has been on self-reliance, or Atmanirbharta as it is being referred to. We have endeavored to achieve much greater indigenization than was possible earlier. As a result, in the last couple of years, the number of new foreign contracts has gone down drastically. They've almost come down to negligible over the last 2 years. We have collaborated with our DPSUs, the civil defense industry, startups, to try and develop an ecosystem so that the development of equipment and whatever we require within the country is facilitated. Now, these efforts have given us dividends, and we are very certain that in the coming years they will pay much greater dividends. Then we come on to the second portion that I mentioned, which is the other capital procurement procedure. Now, this procedure is used for expenditure on our sustenance requirements in a way. It includes, while we do not buy new equipment out of this, it includes the complete replacements, upgradations, modifications, and refurbishment of existing equipment. The powers for the procurement under this head have been delegated right down to the army commanders. Our army commanders have powers up till about 100 crores, and of course the Master General of Sustenance and the Deputy Chief and the Vice Chief, they have higher powers. Now, this takes care of the immediate field formation requirements, and wherever deficiencies are occurring and they were likely to take longer, they are, the funds are utilized by the commands to meet their immediate requirements. Now, coming on to the third component, that is the infrastructure budget. Now, here I'd like to elaborate that, firstly, the infrastructure budget is a major focus area for us. Primarily because, sir, you're aware that the Indian Army is, of course, spread out along the most difficult terrain along our borders. It's probably the most rugged and most difficult terrain in the entire world. We need access and operational infrastructure close to the borders. In addition to that, the almost 500 odd military stations in which the Indian Army is deployed in peace stations across the country, they require administrative as well as operational infrastructure. Now, the efforts that have been undertaken recently are primarily on identification of bottlenecks. We have given much more emphasis. It is now being coordinated. The infrastructure development is now being coordinated at the highest level by the Vice Chief himself. And the directions which are given, they result in a coordinated execution of infrastructure development across all these military stations as well as along the borders. The identified bottlenecks have been addressed one by one to try and open them up so that whatever impediments are there in the utilization of funds are removed. And we have also worked to get additional provisions in for both enhancement of operational and administrative infrastructure.
Jan Samir, I think that was a good peek into the capital expenditure process and how you're going about it. I suppose the thrust would be on modernization and the infrastructure development, because that is the area where we can actually gainfully improve our capabilities also, which is the need of the hour as far as our future preparedness is concerned. But you know, there is another part of our expenditure or financial planning, and that is the procurements which are related to revenue. And for revenue, we have as per the GFR, the government e-marketplace, commonly called as the GEM portal, as one of the major platforms through which we can carry out our expenditure, or rather that is the only preferred way to carry out expenditure. I remember in 2017 when this came first time, and I was at that time the Chief of Staff of Eastern Command, we were really very apprehensive, and we had thrown a lot of questions back to the government. But how has the Army now coped up with those apprehensions, and how is it going about increasing and improving its expenditure on the GEM? Could you throw some light on that?
So I think once again that's a very important question from the point of view of carrying out expenditure. I'd just like to correct your perception in one odd thing. Firstly, it is the mandated form of utilization of government funds as per the amended government financial rules also. So it is not only for revenue, it is also mandated for capital expenditure. So we are now in the process of utilizing it for capital expenditure, and I dare say we have made very good progress there. We are trying to work out the capital module, because in the case of the defense services, we have to work on the defense acquisition procedure, which has its own nuances which need to be modified onto the government e-marketplace. Now the GEM is actually meant for utilization by all government agencies. So when it comes to modification for a specific ministry, they do undertake it, but it takes a little bit of time and a lot of interaction. So we are in the process of doing that. You're right, sir, when GEM came back in 2017, the total expenditure of the Indian Army in that financial year on GEM was just about 21 crores. Now from those 21 crores, we have, in the last financial year, we have reached 15,400 crores. In the year before that, we were the best central organization for the gross monetary value. We got a platinum award for that, which was, that speaks volumes of the efforts put in by the commands, by the budget holders. As I mentioned earlier, there are almost 16,000 budget centers who are actually carrying out expenditure. And those 16,000 have to get on to GEM to be able to utilize the money correctly. Now, the last financial year, we have started onboarding things like rations, medicines, medical equipment,
Okay.
expendable stores. And these added about 5,000 crores to the expenditure last year. Now, as we explore newer areas, today also we are exploring out of our complete revenue budget as well as the capital budget. We are trying to onboard more and more, and we are looking at things like the OEMs of equipment to come on board the GEM for spares, certified medicines. There's an issue with medicines because of the certifications involved, and also works, which is a major portion of the expenditure under revenue as well as under capital, as I brought out in the infrastructure budget. So we need to onboard all these onto the portal.
Okay.
This would enable us to onboard probably another 15 to 16,000 crores, and this would lead to almost 50% of the revenue budget being included for utilization on GEM. The large number of budget centers, as I mentioned, who have been spread throughout the country, they also act, the advantage that the local economy gets is that we have filters in which we can ask for local participation. Okay. You don't want vendors from across the country trying to give us eggs and vegetables and things like that. Okay. So we want the local economies to participate, and thereafter they provide these stores and whatever rations, etc. That does give a boost to the local economy, and these are also aligned to the government initiatives which have been given out, various government initiatives where we are trying to become more and more dependent on the local economies in a symbiotic manner.
Okay.
Now, in the financial year 23-24, there is also the issue of there are various provisions which are available. The best are, of course, through competitive bidding, and the Indian Army has done almost 80% as a competitive bid, sir. I mean, we have not gone for direct procurement. In very few cases of direct procurement, almost 80% of the funds have been utilized for competitive bidding. Now, this results in large amount of savings, and as you would be aware that it has been assessed that approximately 10% savings are accrued whenever we utilize the GEM portal for carrying out procurements. So now that money which is saved is thereafter utilized for meeting additional priority requirements which are there. So it is optimization through the GEM portal. The increased preference to our micro and small industries and enterprises is also there. This is in consonance with the government policy, and the GEM portal itself has given an impetus to automation and digitization in procurement. We are looking at much more happening, and enhanced transparency, the traceable audit trail which comes because of this, and the real-time monitoring leads to better budget management as also transparency, overall transparency for the Army. Now, in the recent past, the DPSUs, our Defence Public Services Undertakings, I beg your pardon, the Defence your public sector undertakings.
That's right.
And startups, they have also enabled the Indian Army to expand our procurement because they have now come on board the GEM portal. And of course, we are benefiting from the larger variety of goods and services that have been onboarded onto the platform.
Well, General Samir, I think that was quite a commendable effort, I would say, because based on my experience, I felt at that point in time myself that probably we need to do some amendments to the GEM, and rising from 21 crore to 15 crore, and now, as you say, that this year, because of the various initiatives that the Indian Army is undertaking, so likely to increase to about 25,000 crore. I think that's a jump which very rarely we see in new systems being introduced into our financial procurement system. So that is quite commendable, and I would say that don't be so humble. You also deserve the credit for having headed this particular directorate for last 3 years. I think your effort also needs to be a very much important part of this growth story. With that, I will move on to our next question. You see, it's always said that the ultimate test of any organization is its cutting edge, right? So what are we doing with all our financial planning to ensure that our cutting edge, that is the field commanders, have the access to the resources, etc., that would enable them to function more effectively and in a much more capable manner?
So I couldn't agree with you more. The cutting edge, that is the field armies, have also been our point of emphasis. We have tried to give them as much as we can and to involve them in the budget preparation and management process. We have introduced a system called the command budget management. Now, this was operationalized to empower field commanders about 3 years back. It gives the army commanders flexibility to shift funds from one head to the other as per their usage and requirement. Now, what normally happens is that if you kind of straitjacket funds, you put them into the code heads. We have, as I mentioned, almost 800 code heads. When we put it into a code head, it is supposed to be utilized for that purpose only.
Yeah, that's right.
Now requirements may change tomorrow. You may have a system. You may have a requirement of utilizing more in one. The overall amount remaining fixed, if we have the flexibility of shifting from one head to the other, it really enables the army commanders to carry out what they want to do. So this is the flexibility which the command budget management model has been utilized for providing to the army commanders. Now this is firstly a totally internal arrangement within the Indian Army. Mm-hmm. It's not something which has been put in place by the government. We have done it amongst ourselves for better utilization of funds.
Yeah.
And it is focused only on the non-salary revenue portion.
Okay.
The model has been very successful. It enables the field army, as I mentioned, to prioritize, estimate, project funds, and this we have done for about 57 code heads.
Okay.
Now these are those code heads which impact operational readiness, quality of life, technological absorption, as also research and development, and for running of military stations. Now these are broadly the heads which I'm mentioning. Like I said, there are about 57 of them. Now the funds are transferred directly from FP Directorate to the commands, as against the system which we follow for other code heads, in which it goes through high-level budget holders who may be the deputy chiefs and other PSOs at army headquarters. So instead of that, the army commanders become the high-level budget holders. Okay. They get the money directly. Now the budget under the command budget management, they have grown steadily from about 9,000 crores to 14,500 crores in the last 3 financial years.
Okay.
These have the funds, we have been monitoring them, they have been spent very judiciously. It has led to a lot of satisfaction, and we have at FP Directorate have ensured that whatever the requirements of the field armies, as was your concern, we have tried to meet that first on priority before we look at other central procurement schemes. And I dare say that this model which has been implemented has been an absolute success story, with a lot of positive feedback coming to us from the commands.
Jan Samir, I think that was a good exposure to how you are trying to actually empower the field commanders. In my view, this should further go down to the lower levels as well, because as we delegate, I think better will be the utilization, more closer to the problem areas. So I think that would be undertaken in the future. So my question is related to this particular issue only, that as you start delegating, you will have the CFAs also probably in future becoming the budget controllers in some form or the other. So what are we doing within the Indian Army as such to make them financially enabled and trained, and I would say financially literate, to ensure that the budgets are utilized correctly, funds are utilized correctly without any major objections, etc., as also they contribute towards the overall capability development, as that is the ultimate desire of any financial exercise which we do within the Indian Army.
Sir, as you just brought out, we are fully in agreement that the command budget management model which we have introduced in the Indian Army should be devolved further. We should go down further, and it should ultimately be the regimental commanders, the unit commanders, who should be able to decide and prioritize that the funds that he gets are not as per code heads to be utilized in those code heads alone, and he should be able to decide on his priorities, whether it is related to the maintenance of equipment, the maintenance of his accommodation, the operational sustenance, whether it includes his training. So we would like to enable that, and for that we are looking at a much greater amount of automation, which will finally enable us to do such a thing. However, coming back to the second part of your question, which was regarding financial literacy. Now, sir, I think this has been one of our major focus areas. Ever since I took over, we identified that this is a deficiency. We acknowledge it. Most of us have not had the exposure necessary to be able to manage finances, or at least beyond what we do at the unit or formation level. So we have tried that. After an analysis, we found that probably there were 3 focus areas in which we need to look at financial planning as well as procurement knowledge, so that it doesn't remain a challenge for the future. Now, broadly, if I were to say that, firstly, we need to have some amount of structured training. We need to incentivize the individual, so that he wants to learn about financial planning. And thirdly, we need to have relevant and current information available, which is study material on the subject. Now, we have sought to address all 3 of these aspects, and if I were to elaborate on these, first is on structured training. So, as I was talking about structured training, now structured training, sir, we've got these management development programs which are being run at civil institutes, and we've also got some amount of courses which are planned or are already being run at our own Cat A establishments. So at the Arun Jaitley National Institute of Financial Management, which is at Faridabad, we have got an MOU which has been signed between the Army Training Command and the Institute for training of Indian Army officers in both financial planning and procurement aspects. Now, some of the aspects which are done over there, some of the courses which are run over there, firstly is a financial management capsule. This is a 3 weeks capsule, 4 times a year for about 25 officers each. We got a public procurement capsule of 1 week being run about twice a year. Again, 25 officers. Defense financial management courses which are run at the commands. Now, these are again part of the structured training to involve not just officers, but the entire staff which is meant for handling financial planning.
Okay.
So in these we have, along with the regional training centers of the CGDA and their central training, Centrad, twice a year in every command we hold these capsules of defense financial management, 3 to 5 days depending on the requirements of every command, and maximum personnel who are involved in financial planning and utilization of funds are made to undergo these courses. And again, sir, the number of people is amplified by, firstly, contact, that is, a few people will come there in contact mode, and simultaneously those who cannot attend physically are also taken up on the video conferencing. So that way the spread is a little more. Now, coming on to the second aspect, which was incentivizing the individual. Now, I think this is one of the most important aspects, that unless there is a need for a person to know something about it, and it makes a difference, the will to carry out studies on that may not be there. That was our belief. So we've asked for incentivization through inclusion of the subject as part of our competitive exams, which are taken very seriously by Indian Army officers, and of course, the promotion exams, which are there for the officers. Since as you grow in service, the requirement continues to increase. So, in the promotion exams, which are the mandatory exams which everyone has to pass, the percentage of questions on financial planning and procurement aspects have been increased. The third part was reference material. Now, financial planning is one such thing, sir, that where if you see that I may have a policy document in front of me, which is, let's say, as late as last year, but it may have been superseded. I need to be sure that is it superseded? Is there something which has come after this? Now, there is no single window, or there was no single window on which we could get the latest updated orders. So, we launched a new website for the Directorate General of Financial Planning, but that is on the Army data network. Okay. It is accessible to the entire Indian Army. On that, we have made it a single point repository for all matters on financial planning of the Indian Army. Now, various policy letters, authorities, the SOPs, newsletters, training material, even news articles from the magazines and newspapers, we try and put them all together onto the website. And my assurance to the entire Indian Army, whenever I've gone and spoken to people in commands, visit them regularly for financial planning, I've been telling them that it is my task on a daily basis to check the currency of the data which is there on the website. So if we have placed something on the website and we have given you, let's say, a compendium on revenue or a compendium for senior officers, all these things are updated as soon as there is a change, and we write on that is updated up till such and such date, so that the confidence levels in utilizing that for carrying out procurement go up and it does not remain a constraint. So, in short, sir, these are a few measures which we are putting in place. And yeah, of course, besides this, the FP Directorate, personally, I go across to all the commands every year to speak to them. I also visit 2 courses, which is the Higher Command course and the Higher Defense Management course. I've also been once or twice for ALMC. In addition, my ADG and the brigadiers, they also go and talk to various courses, try and familiarize them with all that has been done, and motivate them to learn more, so that financial literacy overall in the Indian Army goes up.
Okay. I think, General Samir, I must commend you, not only you, but the entire Indian Army, for having evolved a program of awareness, especially for the CFAs. And why only the CFAs? The entire, actually, personnel of the Indian Army must be aware of the right way to spend things, right way to carry out expenditure. Towards this end, I think you've given me an idea that no amount of education is enough. So maybe at Cloth, I will think of starting a capsule like this. It will just add to the overall awareness levels of the financial expenditure. So I'll look at this quite positively. This is one outcome of the podcast which we are doing today. My next question is, and it is a very obvious question. Today we are seeing a tsunami in technology. I mean, that is something which is given now. Anyone and everyone, when you talk, possibly he first talks of technology and then talks of anything else. And technology in India has really seeped in a very, very major way as far as our financial issues are concerned. You can look at the UPI. I think it is one of the largest platform of
game changers.
It's a game changer, and that's the right word for it. So, what has the Financial Planning Directorate done to capitalize on this digital revolution which is taking place all around us?
Okay, sir. So, as far as the Indian Army goes, through the Financial Planning Directorate, we have looked at automation as a major enabler, as I was mentioning earlier, that with the overall aim of enabling even the lowest unit commanders, the last budget center, to be able to plan his finances and to be able to prioritize what he needs and be able to shift between funds. We've gone in for plans of automation. However, at the moment, my predecessors had put in place the basic financial management automation software which is already existing, implemented in the Indian Army. We call it the Financial Planning Management Information System. And this has been in place for the last 3 years. We are carrying out basic automation to include, we are able to see what funds are being given, what funds have been, the lower budget holders will receive the funds online, and they can dynamically see the allotments changing, if at all, additional allotments coming or something being reduced. And today also we are uploading the complete compiled data onto that. Now, is it enough, or is it the ultimate solution? Is it comparable, as you mentioned, even to the UPI or something like that? No, sir, it isn't. Firstly, we don't require the levels of automation which the UPI gives. That is a personal thing. It is my money lying at the bank from which I can spend it as I please. Here, we are guided by public procurement policy, the canons of financial propriety, and money is to be utilized as your own, but not as your own. It is your, you need to be able to get the best out of that money.
Yes.
So there are a lot of controls, procedures which have been put in place, as they should be for any large organization to bring about uniformity.
Prudence is required.
Absolutely. So, sir, now looking at that, what we have done is that we've studied, incidentally, we went out and studied the systems which are already in place, like we've got the Naval FIS, that is the Financial Information System. They have been running that for about 10 to 12 years. It's a system based on ERP. Similarly, the Public Financial Management System, which is the PFMS, is mandated for the entire government. The Air Force has its own systems. The CGDA is carrying out very large-scale automation they're the ones who are managing the money for us, actually. And we have to be in sync with them. Plus, as we discussed earlier, the government e-marketplace being the mandated methodology for utilization of public funds. We have also gone out and studied the income tax department's automation, the DRDO's automation, Bharat Electronics, NIC. We carried out a full, holistic kind of analysis. And then we came down to our requirements. It took us almost a year and a half to be able to study this and formalize our requirements. Now, having done that, we have now put out the RFP for the Indian Army Financial Information System. The RFP has been uploaded on GEM as late as just about the 2nd of August, just about 26 days back. Okay. And we are hopeful that we will get a system which will meet our requirements. Okay. And when I say our requirements, what exactly do we want? We want that 100% of our units and all our budget centers are onboarded, preferably on the Army data network. In phase 1, we are looking at our own Army data network, because financial information is not something that we would like to put out in the open domain in totality, because how we spend money and what we spend it on indicates capability. So maybe there is adequate caution which needs to be exercised while while putting out that information. Now, what we want our system to be is that we don't want our people to be feeding data into GEM at one time, into our own systems for management.
That's right.
And at the same time also managing, these the systems of the CGDA. Yeah, so there has to be a single point of data entry. So that is what we seek to achieve with our system. It has to meet our requirements of carrying out financial management. There has to be reliability of the data which is there. It should not be something which can be changed by anyone. There has to be that integrity of data, totals and everything, to be correct. And as I mentioned, integration with GEM and CGDA systems would be there. After we have automated our own systems, then we will look at integrating with the CGDA and GEM, which these days is done quite easily through the medium of APIs. Okay. So we want flexibility to be able to undertake business process re-engineering. Now, some of our systems have been designed, most of our systems, I would say, have been designed, the methodology of spending money has been designed based on the paper letters, which are, papers, ink-signed letters,
Correct.
which are given out.
That's
now,
right.
when we adapt to an automated system, the requirement of these papers, the ink-signed papers, would reduce largely, as in when audit finds it, safe enough to be able to do that. So when we get into that, there will be a lot of business process re-engineering which would be required. So our system has to be flexible enough to be able to adapt to that. Now, we need data analytics to be able to see as to what is money being spent upon. Is it in consonance with the Chief of Army Staffs and the Commander's directives on the subject? So that is a major, positive which should come out of the Indian Army financial information system. We should be able to, customize our reports and returns. This is a major bugbear which takes up a lot of time of the staff. So we want to reduce that, and the system should be able to generate whatever reports and returns are required. There have to be dashboards. Everybody's requirements are different.
Correct.
Data that he needs. So there are dashboards which are going to be available to commanders. So all this has already been conceptualized and put in place. And of course, we need visibility with granularity to be able to analyze data. So that granularity will come from the data being originated from the Indian Army Financial Information System, which is part of the thing. Of course, we are trying to develop reliability through the ability to work through a degraded networked environment with minimum bandwidth requirements. And of course, it should be future-proof to be able to look at scalability as we require sometime in the future.
Yeah, that's important.
And of course, the most important part is that certain ERP systems are very expensive to maintain because there's a licensing fee itself involved. But of course, we are looking at a system which doesn't have much of an issue with royalty to be paid on an annual basis, so that it's being developed specifically, and we will own the IPR for the software without having to pay that license fee.
Okay. Well, General Samir, I think you are well on the road to automation, and I wish the Financial Planning Directorate all the best that the software which you are intending to field comes soon, and it is exploited by the entire environment. So for that, I wish the very best to not only the Financial Planning Directorate but the entire Indian Army fraternity. My next question is related to people like me, who have shed the uniform and now they are into the CV street and looking at, and you will find that at our age, etc., we start going to the hospitals more than onto the sports field. So we have this ECHS which covers our health needs of the veterans. And initially this particular issue was quite a concern for the veterans. 2019, I think the entire system came back, budgeted back to the Indian Army. So what is the effort now being made by the Financial Planning Directorate in specific and Indian Army in general to ensure that the veterans get a smooth services as far as ECHS is concerned?
So, thank you for that question, sir. The ex-servicemen's contributory health scheme, which you're alluding to, has been one of our key focal areas. Now, I'd like to assure you, and you will see from the facts and figures which I'll just tell you. Now, firstly, this was established somewhere in 2003. Ever since its inception, it has grown in its coverage and the magnitude, the scope. ECHS has a budget in both revenue as well as capital. Now, it has been part of the Army budget for almost the last 4 or 5 years. In between, it had gone out, it came back to us. Now, 96% of the overall allocations to the ECHS are under the revenue head, that is under the non-salary revenue portion. It caters for hospital admissions, the outpatient department at OPD, and also lab requirements. And all these are clubbed together under the MTRE portion. And also there is a separate portion in which the medicines are catered for. Okay. So over the last 3 years, which I can speak of, ECHS was being given a budget of about 4,500 crores, or I think exactly 4,600 crores when we were 3 years back. It has grown in the last financial year, that is 23-24, to a total of 9,800 crores being utilized, of which 9,400 were in the revenue portion itself.
Okay.
Now, this has primarily been done. We've increased the budget primarily to cater for the rising cost of treatment, OPD charges. Even the ECHS rates had been increased recently by about 30%. Okay. So because of that, the outgo in the MTRE portion of ECHS has also gone up. In addition to this, post-COVID, sir, the requirements during COVID, the requirements were different. People had stopped going for elective kind of surgeries. It appears that now post-COVID, all these things have caught up.
Okay.
Previous, pending issues have now been resolved. Because people didn't want to expose themselves unnecessarily to hospitals at that time.
Obviously.
So now these things went up, and the costs obviously went up. By increasing it to the present levels of almost touching 10,000 crores, I think we are at a sweet spot as far as expenditure goes. It is adequate to meet our requirements. And in addition to this, now further improvements are being carried out by including GEM.
Okay.
For the procurements for the ex-servicemen's contributory health scheme as well. And at the moment, all capital equipment which is being purchased for ECHS is being processed through GEM. Almost 110 categories of medicines have been onboarded. There are issues regarding quality and deliveries and all that. They are being ironed out by the DG AFMS, and very actively, because we interact with them on a regular basis to do that. And I am quite certain that this increase, as also the other methods, like we've even gone to the commands to improve the procurement of medicines, because in ECHS, the procurement of medicines happens through the local medical officer, that is the SEMO in every station. So there is an element of commands, control over the procurement of medicines. So that is also being, the bottlenecks have been identified over there, and we are trying to improve that. In addition to that, we've been, as I said, interacting with the DG AFMS and the DGMS Army to get things moving and adequate money being pumped in. And I'm sure it will lead to better utilization and hopefully for better consumer satisfaction.
Yeah, absolutely.
As, it affects every one of us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jan Samir. I think you have answered a wide spectrum of questions related to financial planning of the Indian Army, and although I know time is very short and we really can't tackle all the questions which are coming in the minds of our audience, I must like to here say that to our audience that this is just the beginning, and we hope to bring more such programs on this particular platform so that we are able to cover a wider range of questions which might keep coming. Please throw your questions in the comment box of our channel. We would like to address them in our subsequent meetings. I would also like to inform our audience that Jan Samir has completed a very successful 3 years as the DG Financial Planning of our Army, and he is likely to soon hang his uniform. We wish him all the very best for his second innings.
Thank you, sir.
And let me also say in a lighter tone, welcome to our fraternity of the veterans. With that, thank you very much, and Jai Hind for this particular program and sparing your time for me.
Thank you for having me here, sir. It's been a pleasure.
Well, gentlemen, that was the DG Financial Planning talking to us. We will have our next guest as the Quartermaster General of our Army, and I think you should keep watch as far as this particular YouTube channel is concerned. We are going to expose you to some of the most happening things which are happening in our Army, and I'm sure all of you will benefit with that. Thank you. Jai Hind.